and another day for the community organization.
Yes, we should.
Because you have to,
Good afternoon, Superintendent. Could I have some order, please? Could we please have some order?
see you next week.
Thank you very much. We welcome you today. I know it's been a lengthy day so far, but it's always difficult under public protection because we have so many commissioners and leaders of the different state agencies, and we certainly are very happy to have the state police and you here today. So if you'd like, we would love to hear your testimony.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Young, Chairman Farrell, distinguished members of the committees, for this opportunity to discuss with you Governor Cuomo's budget for the Division of State Police. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the legislature for its past support of the state police. Because of your support, the New York State Police continues to enjoy...
Again, can we have some order, please? At the top of the room. Thank you. Sorry, Superintendent.
It's okay. Because of your support, the New York State Police continues to enjoy its well-deserved reputation as one of the leading law enforcement agencies in the nation. On April 11, 1917, Governor Whitman signed the Wells-Mills Bill into law, establishing the state police. As we approach the agency's 100th anniversary next year, our role in New York is essentially unchanged to this day. The bill stated, "It shall be the duty of the state police to prevent and detect crime and apprehend criminals. They shall also be subject to the call of the governor and empowered to cooperate with any other department of the state or with local authorities." And the importance of this original charter is as significant now as it was back then. Since its inception, the state police has consistently provided public service through its core missions, adapting mission priorities constantly to societal changes, and we've continually improved these services. Our current mission priorities include reducing the number of deaths, injury, and property damage caused by motor vehicle accidents through vehicle and traffic enforcement and motorist education, providing professional police services to communities and investigative support to departments around the state, engaging in emergency preparedness, planning, and response activities, and serving a crucial role in the state's counterterrorism efforts through our collaborative work with federal, local, and other state agencies. Our mission and goals all focus on ensuring the continued safety of the people of New York State. The Governor continues to dedicate funding to Joint Task Force Empire Shield to enhance efforts to detect and deter terrorism at a time when such acts are constantly a threat to the safety of New Yorkers. As a result, New York remains one of the safest large states in the nation. Using intelligence-based investigative techniques and targeted enforcement, state troopers have been assigned to potential target locations and with local partners provide greater protection for the public through asset integration strategies. This effort is being permanently implemented in New York City with the new assignment of 55 state police personnel dedicated solely to this mission. The state police is unique as the only law enforcement agency in New York State with the ability to deploy large numbers of professionally trained police officers anywhere in the state on short notice in response to an emergency or natural disaster. The state police is also available for large-scale deployments to meet an immediate need for law enforcement services in any community. This was clearly demonstrated over 23 days this past summer during the Clinton Correctional Escape in Dannemora, where we deployed as many as 532 troopers and 200 investigators from around the state to assist with that investigation. At its peak, state police directed 1,560 personnel from 16 different agencies in the investigation. In addition, we continue our partnerships with the Office of Emergency Management and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services with a focus on disaster preparedness and response readiness. Our first and foremost priority continues to be the safety of the public and our troopers who protect them. Toward that goal, we will continue to provide our troopers with the necessary equipment and other resources to ensure safety as they perform their duties. The Governor recognizes this need after observing the level of sophistication and tactics employed at criminal events in the United States and abroad, and has committed to a new funding for additional patrol rifles, rifle-resistant body armor plates, and ballistic helmets for state police patrols statewide. Illegal drug use and its impact continues to dominate headlines in our country. Heroin availability and abuse continues. State Police will continue to aggressively work in partnership with local police agencies and our federal partners to investigate drug-related crimes and to arrest offenders. Our troopers, as first responders, continue to patrol with naloxone, the opioid reversal drug, which we've administered 132 times in medical emergencies involving overdoses. 114 of those administered naloxone survived as a result of troopers' efforts. The use of social media to foster the relationship between the agency and the citizens we serve has been successful in improving cooperation with law enforcement efforts in the communities we serve. By posting safety-related and crime alert information on Twitter and Facebook, the State Police has generated enhanced investigative capabilities that have led to successful case resolutions and shared important public safety information. This year will be the first full year for the Sexual Assault Victims Unit that arose from the passage of the Enough is Enough legislation and the Governor's commitment to combating sexual assault on college and university campuses. 15 state police personnel will work statewide to ensure uniformity in the handling of campus sexual assault investigations, provide investigative assistance and training to campus or local police who are investigating these cases, and to educate individuals and campus communities regarding victims' rights and their available resources. Agency staffing remains an area of constant executive-level discussion within the State Police. We continue to request and conduct academy classes so that adequate staffing levels are maintained to perform our core mission priorities without sacrificing the response time or the safety of our troopers. We will continue to look for additional efficiencies through our partnerships with other law enforcement agencies throughout the state and through consolidation of state government services where practical and possible. And as you're aware, 85% of the appropriations made for state police operations are in support of personnel service obligations, of which approximately 93% supports the salary and overtime expenses of our sworn members. The vast majority of the non-personal service appropriations are best characterized as non-discretionary expenditures. Expenditures for vehicles, equipment, facilities, and communications are all essential to providing the tools necessary for the men and women of the state police to fulfill their law enforcement missions. New Yorkers have come to expect public service from a stable, well-deployed, and adequately resourced state police. I'm proud to say that New Yorkers can be confident their expectations are being met. It is the integrity, knowledge, dedication, and quality of our men and women that distinguishes the New York State Police. I'm honored and privileged to be a part of such a professional police agency and its great traditions and to serve alongside our members. I thank you for your support of the State Police and for this opportunity today to address you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Our first speaker is Senator Tom Croce.
Thank you, Superintendent, for your appearance here today. I know it's been a difficult year in the United States for law enforcement, and for me who grew up in a small town, we grew up thinking police were good and drugs were bad. There's a lot of mixed messages out there for young people today. But at a time when we have incidents like San Bernardino, California, and the heroin epidemic that you raised, it's nice to know that we have the troopers out there watching out for us, and I commend you on your leadership of that organization.
Thank you.
We have previously questioned the Commissioner of DHSES, Commissioner Melville, who just recently appeared today, to talk about the Article 7 language in Part D of the ELFA, which seeks to transfer some of the counterterrorism responsibilities from that organization to the state police. With respect to that specific Article 7 language, who, in your knowledge, in your mind, would be responsible for counterterrorism initiatives in the state should that occur?
The counterterrorism initiatives and responsibility is really a partnership of the State Police and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. We've shared that since that agency was formed after 9/11. I heard Commissioner Melville's testimony this morning, and if I could just build on the answer that he gave. Currently the 10 analysts who are assigned and employed in the Intelligence and Analyst section of OCT, INDISHES, the Office of Counterterrorism, work at the New York State Intelligence Center, in the Terrorism Center and the CTC, and basically report up and are managed by state police personnel. as it's happening right now. So what happens is information comes in, whether it's by phone, email, a phone app, or suspicious activity reporting by law enforcement. The information is worked on and analyzed and built and vetted by those analysts. And the whole goal here is to develop actionable intelligence that we could then hand off to people who could react to it, whether it's state police or joint terrorist task force partners or just alerts or information that has to go out. Currently, the information travels up almost simultaneously through DHS management, DISH's management, and state police management. So by making the change from having people employed by DHSES over to the state police side, functionally changes nothing. And all it will allow us to do will be more efficient in use of those people, backing up those people when people are out, because there's a criminal side and a terrorism side, and they complement each other. A lot of the people are interchangeable. I mean, my goal, the information that travels upward for us has to be operational. For DISH's has to be to develop policy, to react, to brief executive, both important. That's not going to change.
So, on initial glance, that's the appearance of what's occurring here. I just want to ask you a series of questions, because this is what the proposed language would get rid of and not replace either with the state police or DHSES. So would you agree that the following in 2016 is an important function for the state of New York to be engaged in? To coordinate state resources for the collection and analysis of information with relation to terrorist threats and terrorist activities?
Yes.
Okay. The responsibility to coordinate, facilitate information sharing among state, federal agencies to ensure appropriate intelligence to assist in the early identification and response to potential terrorist activities.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. The responsibility of the Office of Counterterrorism to collect, analyze, and share information relating to terrorist threats and terrorist activities throughout the state of New York.
Yes.
So part of the reason that I have some concern listening to Commissioner Melville, whose understanding was we're simply transferring resources, we're shedding the counterterrorism language in the statute, so DHSES no longer has statutory responsibility. I can't find anywhere in the state police authority for direct counterterrorism responsibilities, and those functions that you're being transferred to you don't include the three sections that I just read to you, which I think the genesis of these statutes post 9/11 were to ensure that the kind of information sharing, the kind of fusion that should occur, and the kind of relationships that need to be built up and down echelon existed. So to the members of the committee and to the chairperson, I just want to emphasize the fact that it appears that in transferring these bodies, you're also eliminating the term counterterrorism at the statutory level in the executive branch, and then to an agency which is now going to have the responsibility, presumably, of doing the work. You don't have the statutory responsibility in writing. You don't have the language counterterrorism, and you also don't have a reporting requirement up and down chain. So do you see that you're going to be able to perform these functions in a time of crisis, understanding that you're not going to have the statutory authority to do the mission, and that DHSES will no longer have the statutory authority? So the question is, who has the responsibility if there's no authority?
So even though the language may not be there, in the function of NYSEC, the New York State Intelligence Center, as the state's recognized fusion center, those are the roles of NYSEC. When DHS put out the guidelines back in 2008 in a document called Baseline Capabilities for State and Major Urban Area Fusion Centers, they talk about information sharing, they talk about briefings, and three of the things that come along with intelligence and information dissemination is to develop a dissemination plan, to develop a plan for high-level discussions up and down the chain, be able to brief state, local, tribal agencies on occurring incidents. It requires sharing of information with other fusion centers in surrounding states. It requires reporting of information to the federal government, whether it's DHS or DOJ or the FBI. Now, while that's not required for funding, it's the way we operate. It's the way the center operates. It's the function of the Fusion Center. A number of years ago, we were actually acknowledged by DHS for the excellent way that we do carry out activities there. It's an integral part of the counterterrorism program for New York State. So whether the language is there or the language isn't there, that's the way we function. That's the way the guidelines from DHS are dictated, and we follow them. And I think that's what would fill the gap without the statutory language.
So many of the recommendations that I'm told are being proposed in the governor's budget come from a review that former Commissioner Ray Kelly did. And I think we all acknowledge that he was a pioneer in some of the most innovative and effective counterterrorism policies for a police force that we've ever seen, which is being duplicated worldwide. Have you had the opportunity to read this report?
I don't believe that Commissioner Kelly or former Commissioner Kelly has issued a report. I had met with him and his staff a number of months ago when they were going through just a review of the state's procedures. And since that time, I've heard it verbally, I heard it the state of the state, but I don't know that there's a written report actually presented.
Because it would be very interesting to know if this was fleshed out in that analysis, to know whether or not those three areas which will disappear from the role of New York State government. Some sound pretty important. And collection and analysis of information related to terrorist threats. Sharing among state and appropriate intelligence partners. I think that you would agree that in law enforcement and the military, there are those relationships, those sharing relationships. But in the weeks, months, and years before September 11, 2001, those relationships existed, yet information at the FBI was stovepiped to CIA, the military intelligence community, the Department of State, and the post 9/11 Commission made recommendations that we have the kind of executive focus on these issues to ensure that all departments and agencies within the state, to my colleagues and to you, I don't see, without explicit statutory responsibility by either the state police or by DHSES, I see seams created again. And if those relationships, as you currently have, aren't there, new superintendent, new commissioner, new governor, law enforcement personnel, as you know, rotate all the time, I'm afraid we're recreating seams that the 9/11 Commission said we specifically should avoid.
Well, just to go back to the report by former Commissioner Kelly, I'm not aware of a report. I don't believe a report was issued. I don't know if he has intentions on addressing those issues in his report. I can only tell you as kind of the custodian of NYSEC and a very large counterterrorism function, not only at the troop level, but with the federal partners. I'm fairly confident that the information will flow, especially between us and DISHES. We've always had that partnership. The DISHES commissioner still retains the ownership as chairman of the state's Executive Committee on Counterterrorism, still coordinates the activity of the 16 counterterrorism zones. That really hasn't changed. He's still the arbiter of Homeland Security funding, and a lot of that funding funds the New York State Intelligence Center. So, I would think that if he wasn't satisfied with the information that was flowing, he controls the funding purse strings, and there would be an issue there. I would just like to say, the law enforcement community pre-9/11 and post-9/11 are two different worlds.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. Same with the military and the intelligence communities. We shared before 9/11, but since 9/11, it's so much more seamless. We're open. We work together. It's about collaboration and cooperation. It's just a whole different world in law enforcement.
Well, and I know I'm out of time, Madam Chair, I would just close with, under this construct, as I read it, and I've had a lot of very smart minds look at it as well. If you were to have a liaison meeting with the JTTF and they were to provide you information about a pending attack on New York, in this construct, you don't have to share it with the commissioner at DHSES. You would have no statutory responsibility to do so. You may, of course, and I know you would. But that's my concern, and I think my colleagues and I will have to continue to address it. But I appreciate your testimony today, and I'll turn it over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Our next speaker is Assemblymember Dupre.
Good afternoon, Superintendent.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
The last time that you and I saw each other was at a very emotional day in my district, just hours after the capture of Sweat. I guess more than questions, I first want to extend my heartfelt thanks to you as a superintendent, to certainly Major Chuck Guest, Troop B Commander, our hometown hero, Sergeant Jay Cook, and all of law enforcement. Certainly our CERT teams who put in unbelievable hours tromping through the mud and the mess of some of our North Country territory to have a successful conclusion to the escape, which none of us will soon forget. And I want to take a moment to extend personal thanks to you because my body was down here, my heart and my mind were in my district for those 23 days, but I was surrounded every day by some of my colleagues and friends who continued to say to me, Matt and Sweat are long gone, we're wasting tax dollars, we shouldn't have 1,500 law enforcement in such a small area. And I thank you on behalf of my thousands of constituents who were incredibly frightened that you stood behind Major Guest in your belief and his belief that those two were still there, and certainly you were proven right, and for that I thank you, because I can't imagine what my district would have gone through had you pulled those troops out. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I really need to thank your constituents, your communities, who were tremendously supportive of law enforcement, who were out there 24 hours. They help with shelter and drinks, refreshments, and food and everything else. They were tremendously supportive. They were helpful in information, and it was really a good partnership between law enforcement and community.
I've never been more proud to represent folks than I was during that time, so thank you for that too. I do want to mention the one, and I don't want to really call it a glitch, but I think it's something that all of us up there have been advocating for so long, for better cell towers. I think that certainly was an issue during the escape, the lack of communication. What we lacked in communication through cell towers was certainly made up for in the communication that took place between our federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. But in the future, we will be looking to you and others to reinforce with us as we go through the process of Adirondack Park Agency approval, and the need to have sufficient cell tower coverage throughout that district, because when they're out there, and I know the CERT teams were out there all by themselves with no way to communicate to anybody.
That's true, Assemblywoman. The lack of infrastructure was a tremendous detriment. Not being able to communicate, not being able to track our people on the ground, whether it's through cell service or through radio communications. And, you know, I would say, without naming any companies, but the cell carriers were excellent in coming in with as best as they could support us with trailered equipment. But there's still a tremendous void up in that part of New York State. Yeah,
now they're gone, so we need them all the time. But and my only other question to you, sir, is, and I hear it not all, but fairly often, that the need to have newer vehicles, that so many of the troop cars, you know, the vastness of that region of the Troop B is huge, that so many of the troop cars are way over 100,000 miles on their odometers, that they're breaking down, and you know, certainly a nightmare of mine is that we will have a trooper out there alone some night without cell service and with a car broken down. And so, are you addressing that in this budget and going forward?
Yes, we are. I mean, we've been working that for at least a couple of years now. It is a major concern. It's one of our biggest needs in the state police, of vehicles, you know, followed by people. And probably half of our fleet is at 100,000 miles on the odometer. So, you know, we need a tremendous infusion in this year's budget to kind of make a leap so that at the end of the year we could, our goal is 125,000 miles on the cars. You know, I think through our maintenance program, inspection program, the vehicles can certainly have that kind of life. There may be a year lifespan also, like 7 years, that might be appropriate for fleet. But in this year's budget, we do have sufficient money that I expect at the end of the fiscal year, all of our patrol vehicles, all of our investigator vehicles, and all of our officer vehicles that are currently at 100,000 miles now will be replaced. So I think we'll be in a much healthier place at the end of the fiscal year. We'll come back next year and look to find the right amount to kind of maintain that number so we don't fall back into that. You know, for us, it was a couple of years of insufficient vehicle purchases, problems with procurement contracts, and obviously just not enough funding in the budget to do adequate vehicle purchases. So I think that this year we should get to a good place, and then we just have to figure out what's the right maintenance number to keep us at a good mileage.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Senator Gallivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Superintendent. And as always, thank you for your service and that of the thousands of professional men and women who make the state police one of the finest agencies in the country. And I'm very proud to have come from the state police, as you well know. And perhaps because of that, I have a special interest in the things that take place in the maintenance of the professionalism, and that the state police maintains that high level of service. Governor's budget, you talked about it just a little bit. The governor's budget provided $40 million, some of it for additional state police personnel for New York City, some National Guard for permanent staffing down there as well. And in the reference, I think in the governor's presentation, had to do with Homeland Security issues. But my question has to do with, are you sufficiently staffed to meet the needs of the citizens of the rest of the state?
Yeah, I think right now the staffing levels we're about 4,750 on the sworn side is a good number. You know, a couple dozen more, I'd be much happier. I think that you know, we'll get back to that. We had dropped down very low a couple of years ago. We've been putting in consistent academy classes, and we've been able to build back that number, and obviously we don't want to lose it. As far as the $40 million, I believe that's for counterterrorism. It's to extend the counterterrorism surge, if you want to call it that, throughout the state, you know, beyond New York City. Last year we put troopers down supporting MTA and other agencies in the counterterrorism effort, especially in the transportation infrastructure. And this year's budget is, since we now have permanently assigned troopers to do that in New York City, is to take that money and spend it elsewhere in the state. And we've done some of that already after some of the terrorist attacks we've seen around the world. You know, but I would anticipate you'll see additional troopers at you know, high-profile public events, whether they be sporting events or parades or concerts or school events, college campuses, things like that. And you know, I think we're all aware that whether it's crime, traditional crime, or terrorism, increased uniform presence has a profound impact on that.
What is your current plan for future classes in the current fiscal year or the year beginning April 1st?
So in this fiscal year, we plan on putting in a class in March, which is the end of the fiscal year. We're anticipating somewhere around 200. We're anticipating a second academy class in next fiscal year, which will follow. And as far as the numbers, you know, we'll look at attrition between now and then. We'll look at people who don't make it through the academy. We'll look at new needs, such as Enough is Enough and casino gaming, and we'll work with budget to come up with the right number when we're ready to put the class in. But 2 classes in the next 12 months, the first one being probably 200, somewhere around there.